You guys turned off.
Good. What stupid shit are you gonna say to me this time?
I wasn't. But Eggs, I have no idea how you'd go about joining the Taliban, so you might have to ask somebody else. Welcome to the Bang Bus Football Podcast. My name's Jim. This is my co-host Eggs. Been a little bit, Eggs.
Too long, Jim. Too long.
I think our fans are missing us.
A little bit. Couldn't throw Grimmer under the bus like that, so we're back. You're welcome, Grimmer.
Yeah. No, didn't have anything to do with grammar. Great things take time. This podcast takes some time. I know everybody wanted it. They're calling us out on Twitter. We work at our own pace over here at the Bang Bus Football Podcast. We're going to get it done right. Speaking of that, we have some rankings today. Fantasy football is right around the corner. The draft's right around the corner. Most people are drafting, trying to figure out who they're going to take, when they're going to take them.
It's the best time of the year, Jim.
It is. It really is the best time of the year.
Season?
This is like the perfect blend. Exactly. It's the perfect blend of football coming back. I'm a fall weather guy in general.
It's hot as fuck right now.
It is pretty hot. But once the leaves start falling, barbecue pits start rolling, football starts playing, good times. Great times. All right, let's get right into it here. We've got position rankings for the upcoming fantasy season. It's right around the corner. It's draft time, best time of the year. We're going to get right into it here. So how we're going to do it's a little different. We each have our own rankings. We're going to do QBs, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Eggs is going to take 1 through 5 of the QBs and the wide receivers. I'm going to take 1 through 5 of the running backs and tight ends. We're also going to go all the way through 10 on each position, but we're going to flip-flop. So I'll have 6 through 10 on QBs and wide receivers. He'll have 6 through 10 on running backs and tight ends. Also, we have no idea what each other's rankings are, so some could be interchanged. Some can be completely different. We're going to run through it, see how it goes. Ready, Al?
I'm ready. Let's get it.
Let's go. You got QBs. You're up first. Let me hear your first 5 QBs of the 2021 NFL fantasy season.
All right. Number 1. Oh, my phone's dead, so I can delay it down. You got to go Patrick Mahomes. Number 1 off the bat. He's the best quarterback in the league by far.
I can't argue with it.
A little concerned with the depth at wide receiver for the Chiefs, but I think Patrick Mahomes, you could say that with any team in the NFL, really. I think Patrick Mahomes is good enough to carry on with lack of depth at receiver. So I'm putting him at number 1. Pretty self-explanatory there. Number 2.
Like it.
I'm going to go Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen continues to build off what he did last year. I think he does just enough with his legs to really, kind of put him up in the upper tier, and that arm, man, he can just launch the ball.
One thing that I think is underrated with Josh Allen is he only had 10 picks.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty impressive.
He's big in the red zone, and that's the thing. He's huge.
Yeah.
So he's like I love Cam Newton, but I throw Cam Newton reference in there, but he's big and valuable on the goal line, and that's where he's going to get his valuable fantasy points.
Yep, absolutely. I like it.
Number 3, going to go with my boy Lamar Jackson. That's pretty consensus, I would say. He's definitely a top 5 quarterback. I think he balls out this year. Only 2 quarterbacks in NFL history have ever rushed for 1,000 yards, Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson. He's done it twice. I think the legs just enough speak for themselves. The arm, you can talk about the pass attempts and lack of. I like to talk about touchdowns. Go look at how many he's thrown the past 2 years. He's a top 8 quarterback in the league in passing touchdowns. Then you throw the rushing aspect in there as well. I love Lamar Jackson. I think he balls. I think he's number 3. Return to MVP form.
Now you mentioned the depth when it comes to Pat, and that was your only real question. Marquise Brown, maybe a healthy Sammy Watkins. Mark Andrews is going to be there. That's his security blanket. I can agree with that.
I think is going to catch the ball well out of the backfield. And where I think Lamar kind of can separate himself from those other guys, maybe with the depth issues or whatnot, like I said, the legs. You got guys like Kyler Murray, they do run, but they're not rushing for 1,200 yards. They're rushing for 800. There's a difference there.
Well, he had 1,000. He had 1,000. And he had less rushing touchdowns than Kyler last year too.
Right. I'm looking for Lamar to get back more towards 2019 Lamar.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
That's where I'm going towards 2019 Lamar, number 2 in points in all fantasy.
Okay,
I'm thinking he's getting closer to that threshold. I'm putting him in.
He's done it before. I can't argue with it. He's done it before. People know now what he brings to the table, but they still can't stop him. What I do love about the Ravens and Lamar is that they built that offense around him. They know what his strengths are. They're gonna run the options. They're gonna run the ball a lot, and then they're gonna hit the seam passes and the easy passes to get those touchdowns and move the ball. And it's nearly impossible to stop them, even though you know what they're doing. So, if he can get back to his 2019 form, he only missed one game last year.
And it's not an injury concern, and for me, it's the guy can score 40 points any given week. He's just explosive. He can break off a 60-yard run. It's there. I think that's what gives him the upside there.
So we got Pat, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
Who's number 4?
Yep. Number 4, I'm throwing Dak Prescott in there, baby.
Dak.
I'm thinking Dak Prescott just, before he got hurt, man, he was slinging the ball. The Cowboys were putting up a ton of points. I think they're even going to be better this year offensively. I think the offensive line, if it can stay healthy, I think that's so crucial for them. They're going to get a bunch of shootouts, but they're going to score a bazillion points. And I think Dak Prescott is going to spearhead all of that. I think he's going to be amazing. I don't know. I think the Cowboys are the best team in that division. I know Washington gets a lot of talks. I'm not saying that the Cowboys are a 13-win team or anything like that, but if Dak Prescott can play well and get back to where he's going, I think he can put himself in the MVP talks for the NFL.
For sure. And I'm with you there on the weapons. CD, he's going to have a freak year. Amari Cooper, I think, super underrated. Every year his one thing I've had problem with is with the drops, but the target volume is always going to be there for him. They're going to get him the ball. They know who he is. They want to use him. I see Zeke having a bounce back year. He better at least. No more 5 fumbles. He's going to, with Dak in the game, him and Dak have that connection. I think that only makes Dak better. My thing is, he literally almost snapped his fucking ankle off last year.
That's true.
And he hasn't played a preseason game. He hasn't played a single snap. He's having shoulder strain, whatever the hell it was.
Yeah,
I just think
probably a little sore.
I think there's going to be a little rust there for
quite
maybe half the season, or at least first 4 or 5 games. I think it might take him a little bit to get back into the groove of things. Just being rusty, and that's all it is. Like I said, I love the weapons, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see where it goes, but that fucking injury was disgusting. He Alex Smith that thing.
No, snapped it clean in half. That was a nasty stiff arm right before that, though.
And I don't know how many. I don't know what his rushing looked like in 2019 either. Do you have any idea?
18 carries, 93 yards, 3 touchdowns. So
the year before is his healthy year.
Yeah, no. Sorry, that was for last year, 2020. So I mean, even in the limited games that he did play, he only threw for 9 touchdowns with 4 picks. So he ran
how many?
As well.
How many games did he play? Do you have any idea?
I don't have it pulled up right here. 4 games.
4 games. Okay.
Yeah. Week 5.
Okay, so that's like 5 rush attempts a game, which is pretty good. You you average that over 17. Yeah. No, for sure.
Those are nice.
I get where you're at. Dak killed it the year before, so if he can knock that rust off, get after it, you're right. He could finish top 5 with the weapons alone, I think so.
Absolutely. So moving on to number 5, I'm going to throw Kyler in there. I think, and the only reason why I kind of slide Kyler down a little farther than other people have, and man, that division is tough. It's the best one.
Yeah.
It's just a tough division. He's got DeAndre. He's got all the weapons. They keep drafting guys for him. They got running backs galore down there. I just think there's a lot of weapons in the offense, and I don't think they're going to ask him to use his legs as much, maybe. So that might impact his fantasy stats a little bit. I think he threw for 4,000 yards last year. I mean,
that's pretty good, and rushed for 800, 900.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
third year in the league, right? Yeah, third year in the league, maybe
something like that. Yeah,
defense is kind of figuring out how to contain him a little bit, and I just the talent is more of what I'm getting at, not necessarily that you can stop him because you can. He's a great player. Just the talent in that division and having to play those guys for 6 games out of the year, I think that might impact his fantasy season a little bit.
I could see that. I mean, Niners are getting Bosa back. They still got Fred Warner. He's a beast. Seattle, they're going to be a defensive first team. The Rams got AD and Jalen Ramsey. Arguably the 2 best players at those positions. Back to the Cardinals in general, though. AJ Green, I don't know. He's 33 now. I don't know what necessarily has left. They act like they see something in him. I'm excited to see it. Christian Kirk. They drafted was it Rondale Moore?
I'm not sure who it is. Whoever it is has been going crazy in the preseason.
Some people are really I'm pretty sure it's Rondale Moore that they drafted.
Yeah.
Running back, I think, is a pretty big question. I don't like James Conner there. Or Chase Edmonds, he's going to catch some balls out of the backfield. But when it comes down to it, and this is where I agree with you on his rushing stats might regress a little bit, is his O-line. I think his O-line's really bad. Not great. I don't know if they added much to it, but I'm not looking. It's not looking like a top 10 line to me. That's for sure. So we'll see where that goes. But I think it's a good list. So just to recap that, we got Pat, Josh Allen, Lamar, Dak, and then Kyler to round it off.
Yep.
I will say we have no doubles. There is nobody that you have in the top 5 that I have at 6 through 10. I will say I don't have Dak in my top 5. No, I didn't have Lamar in my top 5, and I replaced him with Aaron Rodgers. So that was mine. I don't even have. We'll go through it. We'll go through it here. You'll see where I'm at. Number 6 through 10. This is my list. I have Russell Wilson. He's a stud, all pro. People know you're gonna have a headache every time you go into Seattle. Come on the road, he's gonna give it his best. Rushed for 83 times last year, 500 yards, 2 touchdowns. I could see his rushing touchdowns go up just a little bit. Another year, DK, stud. I see him having double-digit touchdowns, 1,200 yards. I know a lot of people in the league don't tend to like Tyler Lockett, but you can't deny that he caught 100 balls last year and double-digit touchdowns, and is an absolute stud and has been there for a long time. Run game. Oh, they actually got a new offensive coordinator. I can't recall his name right now, but I do know he came from a passing offense, and so I think the change of scenery there will help Russell Wilson in general. It might take a little bit maybe to get going, figure out the offense and get on the same page, but I do think that this is going to be more of a pass first offense now, and I don't think people realize how big of a change it is with the OC coming in. That's just my opinion, though. What do you think about Russ?
I love Russ. He feel like he always starts hot too, comes out of the gate just blazing. I mean, he's consistent. That's a great.
Right, it's Russ, Mr. Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, Mr. Unlimited.
Yeah, you gotta be unlimited. You gotta have
a. Okay, number 7 on my list. My tier rankings here. I have second-year quarterback out of Oregon, Justin Herbert. I think he's a stud. Kid can throw it anywhere he wants to on the field. The Chargers know he can do that, have been setting him up for success. Another year, Keenan Allen. If Mike Williams can stay healthy. Eckler's a beast if he can stay healthy. They drafted Darrisaw for left tackle. They did get rid of Hunter Henry, which is kind of surprising. Do you know if they replaced a tight end? I don't remember.
No,
I can't recall. I can't recall either. But they drafted Joshua Palmer, who I think they like. He's a young guy. I just think he takes another big step forward. Their defense gets Derwin James back. Adderley another year. They drafted Asante Samuel Jr. The defense is going to be better overall in general. That means more opportunities for the offense. I mean, the kid put up numbers. 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, and passed for nearly 600 times, 595 times. Not to mention he rushed for 5 touchdowns. So 36 touchdowns in his rookie year. Total touchdowns is really impressive. I think he's a stud.
I like that. You can't argue with what Herbert has done. He's got a huge arm. Keenan Allen's still there. Lots of offensive talent. I like it.
Yep. Next. Number 8. New guy, new team. Not new guy. Old guy, new team. But that division we were just talking about over there in the NFC West, Matthew Stafford. Matt Stafford, I feel bad for the guy being stuck in Detroit. What an awful place to be stuck for your whole career. When it comes to Detroit and building a team, they never gave him shit besides Calvin Johnson. Granted, Hall of Famer, arguably one of the best of all time. But other than building an O-line and making good and setting a good defense for him, it was always bad. So back to the Rams though, and him being on that team, I think Sean McVay is just going to give him the playbook and say, do whatever you want with it because we're going to sling this fucking ball. You got Cooper Kupp, you got Robert Woods, you got Tutu Atwell, you got Tyler Higbee at tight end, who I think could have a pretty good year. The one thing holding them back is a legit running back. Now, they did just trade for Sony Michel, which I think was a really good move for them. Catching balls out of the backfield. He's not going to be an every down back, but that's not necessarily what they need. Darrell Henderson will be there, short yardage, red zone, that kind of guy to get the run game going. They'll bring Sony Michel in for the dump offs, whatever it needs to be. He'll be their security guy. They'll split carries in my eyes. Split touches at least, not necessarily just carries. But I think Sean McVay is just going to light the book on fire for Matt Stafford. And I think he's got something to prove. I think people are questioning Jared Goff. He'd been in the Super Bowl here in the last 3 years. He'd made the playoffs just about every year, Plus they have that defense over on the other side, and he's got to live up to the hype. He doesn't want to be known as second tier to the defense. So I think he's going to let the ball rip. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to prove some people wrong and some people right. Because I do think a lot of people are on the fence about Matt Stafford just because of his age. But he's always been clutch. He's never won the big game, never won big playoff games, nothing like that. But he's always been able to produce. And in fantasy football, that's all that matters. Every inch matters. What do you think about Matt Stafford? I know we had mentioned it. We talked a little bit about him.
Yeah. No, I like the Matt Stafford pick. To what I'll say to your running back comment, I'll say that I think people underestimate how important the running game is in Sean McVay's offense.
Definitely.
So I think
it's built on play action, setting up the run, and getting the ball downfield.
That's why Jared Goff was as efficient as he was. When he had Gurley and they went to a Super Bowl. I would counter that also with who is his running back in Detroit? What were his weapons there? I think he's definitely an upgraded offense here. I know, like Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay and those guys, they're good players. But I think Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp are just better. I think Sean McVay's better.
Deshaun Jackson, forgot about they added him. Who knows? He's a vet.
Still fast.
He's still got his legs.
So I think Matt Stafford's a good pick there. That's an interesting one. He was not in my top 10, but I would probably replace who I have at 10 with him.
Yeah, for sure. Number 9. We'll move on to number 9 here. This guy's been around a long time, been on a few teams. I think it's overlooked quite often. They added a big piece for him, Ryan Tannehill. Again, this is just an offense that everybody knows they're going to run the ball with Derrick Henry. They literally put out a sign and say, hey, we're going to run this way with Derrick. Now adding Julio and then A.J. Brown, that's a hell of a trio. They've got Ferksker at tight end. I think the Titans are going to be contenders this year in the playoffs and can make a deep run. I mean, the dude doesn't turn the ball over. He threw for, what is it? 3,800, 33 touchdowns, and only had 7 picks.
Sneaky 7 rushing touchdowns too for Ryan Tannehill.
Right.
So that's
absolutely
fantasy value there.
40 total touchdowns, just right there between rushing and passing. I mean, 4,000 total yards, and they're added Julio Jones. I think Mike Vrabel has found his stride as a coach. He's a team guy. The players trust him. They can rally behind him, and they want to win. They've lost in the playoffs the past 2 years. They're another team that I think has a chip on their shoulder. I think they could pretty easily win the division. Maybe the Colts would put up a fight if Carson Wentz is healthy. I'm not worried about the Jaguars yet. And I don't even know who the Texans are. I don't know if they're even an organization anymore. So I think they'll run away with the division, and they'll go to the playoffs again, and they'll say, "Hey, you got to beat us. We know what you're going to do. We added Julio. Good luck."
Yeah.
What do you think about Ryan?
I like Ryan Tannehill. I think you're exactly right. I think it might impact Derrick Henry a little bit. I don't think he may get as many carries now.
I agree.
With adding Julio, I think AJ Brown is going to take another step forward. He's had 2 consecutive 1,000-yard years since he's been in the league. Ryan Tannehill's he's labeled as a game manager, but I think he's a little more than a game manager. Even when he was in Miami, it's just when he's gelling and he's good, he's an above average quarterback.
He's a playmaker.
I think he has good weapons around him, and he's athletic.
Absolutely,
he's a receiver in college. So
absolutely,
I like Ryan Tannehill there. I think he's underrated with his legs.
He rushed 43 times last year. You know what I mean? That's 3-4 times a game.
Yep.
Having 7 touchdowns, that's half his game. So I agree with that. I think he's a playmaker, and he's going to make some moves, and he's going to stamp himself in the top 10 once again this year. Final pick. This is my 10th overall QB, the GOAT, the old guy down there in South Florida, Tom Tampa Brady. He just has he has too many weapons. How can you hold him out? I mean, even last year at 43, 44, 70, I don't know how old this fucking guy is anymore, still throwing 40 touchdowns, 4,600 yards, and still had 3 rushing touchdowns last year. Oh, this is actually a pretty crazy stat. He rushed 30 times, had 6 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Awesome.
He had half as many touchdowns of his rushing yards as he did touchdowns. That's insane.
Yards? What is that? 6 yards divided by 30. Attempts, he averaged 0.2 yards per carry.
That's actually impressive.
That's awesome.
But his Bruce Arians, he's always been known as a guy to want to push the ball down the field. That's why Tom went there, knowing that he was going to throw to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. Gronk's still there. They're hoping for O.J. Howard to finally find his nuts and do something. The run game, I like the running back committee. Not so much fantasy wise, but when it comes to building an offense, it's fine. Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, and then they added Giovanni Bernard. Watch out for him in fantasy, by the way, when it comes to catching balls. They're going to be there again. They're going to win their division. I don't think it'll be really that close. Their defense is stupid. They got better everywhere, in my opinion. Their line's great. Ali Marpet, Tristan Wirfs. There's a few guys there that I don't remember, but Tom still got it. I'm not underestimating him just because of his age. So
yeah. No, I like Tom. He's number 7 on my list. So I
number 7.
Sling it.
Yeah.
Like you said, 40 touchdowns last year. All those weapons just coming off the Super Bowl. He might fall off a cliff eventually, but who knows when? I'm not going to bet against the guy.
Yep. So as you can tell, I didn't have Lamar.
Yeah.
In my top 10.
We have really on our list.
My first 5 would have been Pat, Josh Allen, Kyler, Aaron Rodgers. I might be able to switch either of them, and then 5 would have been Dak for me as well. I think he will get it going, even with the injury stuff. I think he'll have a great year. So, but I think it's a good list. I'm surprised we didn't have any doubles. I didn't have anybody you had elsewhere. I'm sure we'll hit some though. Here when we get to the next positions.
There. Don't worry.
That's for sure. All right. Well, we'll get right here into the running backs. I got top 5 running backs. You'll have 6 through 10.
Oh yeah.
Number 1 on my list was number 1 last year, Dalvin Cook. Stud all the way around. Any way you want to cut it, stud. Rushed for 1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns, and caught 44 balls on 360 yards and a tutty. So 17 total touchdowns. I think he's a stud. He could have 1,700 yards rushing and hit 16 rushing touchdowns again, in my opinion, just because of the weapons that they have with Jefferson and Thielen. They got to account for him. So Dalvin's going to get his lanes. He's going to eat. You agree with that? You like Dalvin at 1?
Yeah, that would be my number 1 as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We're thinking alike here. Mm-hmm. Number 2, I'm gonna go Christian McCaffrey. Not that big of a surprise if he can stay healthy. I mean, the dude caught a stupid amount of balls in 2019. How many? What? It was 116.
Yeah, something ridiculous.
116 as a running back is insane. He had 142 targets, 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns receiving.
Jesus.
And then he rushed for 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane. If he's healthy for 17 games this year, I see no reason why he can't be number 2 in the league, right behind Dalvin and fighting for it. You agree with that? Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's another no-brainer. That's an easy one too. It's all about being healthy for CMC, but I don't think that should scare anybody. I mean, he's the dude's a stud. He's worth taking.
Well, and Sam Darnold, he only played a few games with Sam. Sam's a little more comfortable now. Is this his first year? This is his first year. So this is Sam's first year.
He was with Teddy last year.
Yeah, exactly. He was with Teddy. Matt Rule, I like him as a head coach. I think he's a player's guy. They have Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. I know they got rid of Curtis Samuel, who's a speedster, went over to Washington. But I think Sam Darnold's underrated. The seeing ghost thing out in the Jets organization, kind of like the Lions, just shitty organizations. He was never set up for success. And I think with the new owner down there in Carolina, he wants to build a winning culture. And I think trading for Sam Darnold was a great move for him. And McCaffrey, I think, will reap a lot of the benefits from it. So,
I love that.
Yeah. Number 3, second-year guy. He's in the AFC South. He plays for the Indianapolis Colts. He's got a hell of a line in front of him. Jonathan Taylor.
Wow.
Only thing that defers me is how many balls he can catch out of the backfield. That's my only question mark. As a rookie, he rushed 230 times for 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns. He's only going to get better. People coming out of college, everybody said, "Oh, he's got too many carries. He has too much experience." I've never bought that argument. I think that is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Who puts someone down for having more experience through college? If you can dominate on that level and have that and can come in here and be behind Quentin Nelson and some of these other studs that he's got in front of him, I don't see why he can't keep eating.
Yeah.
I think he keeps at it, and he could easily rush for 1,300 yards and double-digit touchdowns again. But like I said, in PPR, it's very important to catch those balls, so he would have to get closer to 50, in my opinion, catching out of the backfield. Do they still have Naheem Hines, or did he go somewhere else?
Yeah, him and Marlon Mack. They signed Marlon Mack, so they have some running backs there, and that's.
But that was a question last year too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think one of them got hurt. Whether it was Hines,
got hurt actually.
They both did. Okay.
So yeah, that's
so that could be a question mark.
Him. So a little more of a committee deal, but I mean, Jonathan Taylor is definitely the lead back there. He's going to get.
I think they're going to feed him
those touches.
250
maybe in pass catching situations, like you say, that's when you're going to see those other guys out there.
For sure, definitely.
That's interesting. That's definitely way higher than I have him. So that's kind of where we're different there. So we'll touch on more on that.
Yep. I like it. Number 4, who I think is usually a consensus top 3 guy, just because, like I said, with the targets, is Alvin Kamara. I have him at 4. I think Drew Brees being gone, I think Alvin was a bit of a security blanket for him. With Michael Thomas being out, in and out, unhealthy, Kamara got 107 targets last year. I see that regressing, in my opinion, with Jameis. And I don't think he catches 80 balls this year. He's only had 187 rushing attempts, which is pretty low for a lead back. If he's going to be a bell cow, he needs 250, 225, to really get the rushing yards there. But you can't argue his ability. Had 16 rushing touchdowns on only 187 carries and still caught 5 touchdowns, which, I mean, literally, he had 6 touchdowns in that Christmas game, which was stupid. So he's a stud. Don't get me wrong, but I think the offense is a little different now. Drew Brees is the big question mark for me. I actually like Jameis on New Orleans. I think they're going to throw the ball more and push the ball downfield farther. Passing wise, not so much check downs. I just don't think that's in Jameis's blood when it comes down to it.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely interesting. I definitely see Kamara regressing a little bit in that regard. Who are they going to throw the ball to is my question. Michael Thomas isn't going to play for the first 6 weeks at least.
Yeah.
That's that they got their young guys that are playing well, this preseason breakout guy. But the Kamara doesn't get all the rushing attempts, like you said. He's definitely had some other backs there. That's definitely
and to your
that. Latavius Murray last year took a lot of his carries away.
In
that regard, and was very effective. So it's interesting.
And to your point, with not having all the weapons there, Michael Thomas being gone, they hone in on Kamara. They know when he's out on the field, he's going to be their number one guy that they look at, and so it's a lot tougher that way. When there's a lot more weapons, it's harder to account for everybody. It's easier for him to get 107 targets, in my opinion. But we'll see. Top 5. I mean, top 4 out of the top 5 is still a hell of a year. But I just think he comes back just a little bit. The 16 touchdowns is insane. 21 total is insane. So I think he'll regress there a little bit. Number 5, rookie. One of the best fits in the draft, in my opinion. Going there, I think it was 24, went to Pittsburgh. Najee Harris. Le'Veon 2.0, in my opinion. Mike Tomlin loves a good running back. That's how he builds his offenses. Ever since Le'Veon left, I think that's what PC's been missing. Yeah, they started 11-0, 12-0. No one actually believed that they were that good. I think everybody kind of knew that they were outplaying themselves when it came to their record. Now having Najee Harris, they got all the weapons still. Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson had like 130 targets over there on the outside. Big Ben might be his last run. Might be giving it all he's got. Najee, I could see him easily catching 50 to 60 balls, rushing for 1,000 yards, and having double-digit touchdowns. It's a good offense, great defense, and I think he's going to eat. I think they really like the kid. I think he's a great fit, and I think he's going to be a stud for a long time. What do you think about him being at 5? Is that, in your opinion, is that too much?
That's I think he has a lot of expectations. But
he does.
He has the size to carry the workload. He has the size to get the goal line carries. He's a good pass catcher. He played. I mean, the Alabama running backs. We talked about it. They're built different, man. I don't have him. I wouldn't put him that high. But I mean, in a league like ours, I could definitely see him being one of the first people off the board.
So he's not even in your top 10.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see him being a top 10 fantasy back.
Definitely.
Just with the workload and everything like that. I'm a sample size guy. Let's show me first.
Right. So. Well, to the point of Jonathan Taylor last year, you know what I mean? And he was kind of splitting carries there for a minute. Yeah. People questioned it coming in, and I think he's going to catch way more than 39 balls, and it's a better offense in general. So I think he's a better back overall, but we'll see. It's his rookie year. There's a lot on the table, with sometimes being a rookie, you don't get the full playbook going into the year. It takes you a little longer, but I think the kid's a stud. I think he's got the vision, he's got the wheels, break tackles, got hands. Le'Veon 2.0, in my opinion. He's a stud.
So our big difference here in top fives, if you will, I have two big name guys that we just can't not mention here. Mine go Dalvin Cook #1, CMC 2. I have Zeke at 3. Once again, he is my second keeper, so I'm really hoping that he looks.
He would have been in my top 10.
Big year.
He would have been in my top 10 for sure.
He's in the best shape of his life. I think he's refocused. I think the 5 fumbles last year. I don't know, watching him on Hard Knocks, man. I love.
He looks good.
I'm feeling it. He looks great.
He does look good. And the Dak connection, you can't deny that there is some sort of chemistry there. He plays better when Dak's on the field.
It goes back to that offensive line being healthy. That Cowboys offensive line is great. They have potential to have 3 All-Pros on their offensive line if they can remain healthy. It's just that's a big thing for them.
Yeah.
And then at 4, I have Kamara. A little regression for him. I could see him sliding down to the bottom side of the top 10. I think the receiving and the receptions. I don't think it'll dwindle enough to drop him that far, but I really think that it'll be interesting to kind of see how it pans out with that Saints offense, especially early on.
Definitely.
With all the new pieces and like you said, Drew Brees is gone.
Definitely.
It'll be different. And then at 5, I have Derrick Henry. Obviously he's the leading rusher in the league. Dude's an absolute stud. He's going to get the touches.
He would have been in my top 10 for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So that's just kind of what we're different.
He's going to get his touch. They're going to feed his ass all day long. They're going to set up the other weapons with Derrick Henry. It's undeniable.
He's going to get 2 attempts when they're inside the 5 to get in there.
He'll break off a 90-yard touchdown with 5 stiff arms, and he'll do that a couple times for sure.
So moving into 6, we're a little different top 5. And my 6 through 10 is probably way different here. It's a little wild, but I like you had 2 guys that are high of mine, so that's interesting. Number 6, I have Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb's a Derrick Henry 2.0. Absolutely. He's a very efficient runner. He has great vision, and he'll just run you over, man. I think the Browns' offense this year is going to be big. I think they're going to really contend in the AFC. I think Baker Mayfield, as much as I don't like him, is just getting better and better. They have all the weapons. They can get Odell back and get a little sliver of what he used to be, with all those other guys. And they have Kareem there too, which
that's my question.
Chubb, which is the handcuff for Chubb, but I think Chubb is definitely.
Kareem is clearly the receiving back there. They love passing the ball to Kareem.
It is his big handcuff, and that's why he's probably not a top 5 back. But man, he's a potential to.
He's good.
Have 1,300 yards rushing. I mean, and a bunch of double-digit touchdowns. So I think Nick Chubb at 6. That's where
he seems like an every inch matters type of guy to me. You know what I mean? Absolutely. He breaks tackles too. I mean, it's hard to bring Nick Chubb down, and he's but he's so boring. Can we agree on that?
The thing with Derrick Henry too. That's why I traded him away. He's boring, man. I know Derrick Henry will stiff arm 3 guys and then have a 90-yard run. That's great, but he's going to run the ball 30 times and he's going to get 4 yards. He's going to get 6 yards. And it's just,
right. Even with just the way Chubb, his personality, and his dumb helmet that he wears with it's just not even cool. He doesn't wear any sort of armbands or anything. He's just all about football. I just don't even think I could have a conversation with the dude, other than football. You know what I mean? He's just Nick Chubb. Come on. But I don't mean to kill the guy, but I'm sure he's very nice. Who knows?
Number 7, Saquon Barkley. I think Saquon is a big question mark. There's no doubting the talent that he has, but he's played 15 games out of the past 32. That's
wow.
Especially with running backs, man. You tear ACLs, you do that sort of thing. I know surgeries and all that stuff nowadays. Guys come back, they're just as good, but he's missed time. He's missed time in the playbook. He's missed time with Daniel Jones. He's still a young player, and the Giants are not good.
I was going to say that.
I don't care what they got Kenny Galladay. That's great. Their offensive line is horrible. Their defense is horrible.
It's coaching more so for me. I don't think the players like Joe Judge one bit. And I think the offseason kind of is a teller for that. I mean, somebody literally signed and then retired like 2 days after. He's like, this is bullshit. What is going on over here in New York? I think the Jets are literally set up better than the Giants are right now, which has never happened since like the 80s.
They're still the Jets. Easy. So that's Saquon. I don't know. I wanted to put him lower, but you can't with the talent. If the guy
you can't,
he's going to put up 20 points.
They're going to feed him. He's going to get his targets. He's going to run the ball. If he stays healthy all 17 games, he's going to be a stud. So,
I think
16.
Just the Daniel Jones kind of limits his receiving a little bit. I think when Eli Manning was back there his rookie year, Eli's slow. Guys are coming at me. Here you go, Saquon. That's where a lot of his receptions come from. So that's why I think his numbers kind of a little bit there. But he's got to stay healthy. That's the most important thing. And that's why he's at 7. Number 8. Interesting. I was trying to justify putting him on here, but I don't have to. Aaron Jones with the Packers.
Yeah.
They signed him to a big deal. They're going to feed him the ball. A.J. Dillon, shut up. Aaron Jones scored 16 touchdowns the year before. He scored 13 touchdowns last year. The dude, they're going to feed him the ball. I like Aaron Jones. When we were at the game in Arrowhead, he absolutely torched the Chiefs for 100-something yards. And he was the best player on the field that day. I think he's a feature back. I think if he would have went somewhere other than Green Bay, I think people would have him rated a lot higher on fantasy leaderboards. Aaron Rodgers and Devonte Adams and all that, kind of takes away from him a little bit, but I see him having just as good of a year this year as he did last year.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I think he'd be a little low. I think he'd be closer to 10 on my board in general, but you can't deny that he will get his touches, he'll get his targets. I don't underplay AJ Dillon as much, I think, as you are. I mean, they draft him in the second round. They're going to want to use him. And I think he could be a guy to steal those red zone touchdowns, those small yardage touchdowns. I think they're going to give Thyquan, whatever the fuck they call him, they're going to give it to him so he can run up the middle. It's a second year. That's the only reason I'd probably have Aaron Jones lower than you would.
Yeah, my thing with Aaron Jones is he's super efficient with his carries. He did only score 11 touchdowns last year, so I hyped him up a little bit too much. But he averages 5.5 yards per carry.
That's awesome. That's great.
Which is crazy. So, and even he doesn't need 25, 30 touches a game to be efficient. And especially in that offense, he's not going to get that because they're going to sling the ball with Aaron Rodgers. Devonte Adams is going to get his 15 targets a game, and that's that. So
Randall Cobb's there too, so don't count him. Aaron needed him back on the team, apparently.
Stop it. Number 9. This guy's probably the most shocking, I would say, as my number 9 guy. Joe Mixon. I think he's going to have a big year. I think we've talked about the Bengals in 3 freaking podcasts now. I think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. I think they like Zach Taylor. He's young. I think I don't know, man. I really like Joe Mixon.
I like that. No, I like that pick. I think it's a lot of upside. People want to label him as injury prone, and even myself through this offseason, I was like, I don't know about Joe Mixon. And then I went back and looked at it. Well, he played 6 games last year, I think, and then got hurt. But the 3 previous years, he played a full season and then played 14 and 14.
Good stat for you. Him and Dalvin Cook actually came in the league at the same time. Joe Mixon's played more games than Dalvin Cook. Joe Mixon is labeled as more injury prone, I would say, than Dalvin Cook.
Right.
So I think Joe Mixon has a bunch of talent.
That's a good stat. I didn't know that. That's impressive.
Yeah. So,
people forget about Dalvin Cook those first 2 years, tearing his ACL and being out quite a bit the second year. That's a good stat.
So I think Joe Mixon's definitely going to get his touches. I think Joe Burrow's
definitely
throw a quarterback. They're going to run the piss out of the ball. I think he's going to get 25, 30 touches a game.
No Gio,
exactly. I think he catches the ball better than people give him credit for.
Definitely.
I think Joe Mixon is going to be a feature part of this offense this year, and I think the Bengals are trending in the right direction. They need some offensive line and some defensive help, but I think they're going in the right way.
Yeah, I like that pick. I like him top 10.
Number 10, Jonathan Taylor is my number 10.
Okay.
I had him with a hyphen Najee there. So not too far out of being out there. But Najee with the expectations, I think he kind of falls out, but we could see him sliding in. But Jonathan Taylor, I think the running back by committee there, taking touches, he's not catching any balls, and I think Carson Wentz not being there initially. I know they haven't really had much for quarterback play. And Phil Rivers, I guess, is all right. He's a good game manager at this point, but that's about it. But I think that'll impact Jonathan Taylor. He's going to get touches. The offensive line is good, like you said. I just don't. I don't know. I just don't see the Chiefs being ahead in a lot of games.
Colts.
Sorry, the Colts.
Yeah.
The Colts ahead in a lot of games early. They have a great defense. I know that, but I could see maybe his
It's a good point.
Dwindling less than he had last year, and that's just kind of why I'm not as high on him.
Playing from behind more and not focus on the run game as much. I could see that.
Man, I don't even know who's starting at quarterback for them. I know Carson Wentz is not to begin the year, so it'll be interesting to kind of see how that factors into Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
8 guys in the box is what he's going to see.
Yeah. No, you're right. I like that point. And that's kind of the same point with Kamara too. We don't know where the weapons are going to be on the outside, and so if they their sole focus is stopping Jonathan Taylor, it's a lot easier to do that. So, yeah, that's a good point. I like that. All right, next we will go into wide receivers. Eggs, you've got the top 5. Take it away.
Yep. Wide receivers. I guess I should have switched this to pull up receiver stats. I'm going to go Devonte Adams, number 1.
Stud.
Over Tyreek. I just, and mainly just for the PPR standard, Tyreek has a bazillion yards and a bazillion touchdowns. Devonte Adams catches a bazillion balls. 148 targets last year, 115 receptions, 1,400 yards, 18 touchdowns.
Stupid.
Getting Aaron Rodgers back one more ride. I could see him scoring another 18 touchdowns, being a number 1 receiver.
Last dance.
Yep.
Absolutely. Last dance. They're going to give it his all.
Number 2, Tyreek. You can kind of interchange those 2 guys. Tyreek's the Chiefs are so good at getting him his targets. Everybody kind of labels him as just like a vertical speed guy, but I think Andy Reid is so good at getting him integrated in the horizontal passing game.
Yep.
That's kind of what they do with McColl too. And man, Tyreek, he's so fast. He's just a step faster than everybody in the league. He's got the best quarterback in the league. He's the number 1 guy. I just don't know how you could take anything away from the guy. I think he's proven now that he's finally gotten the respect that he deserves. You've been saying it forever. He's a top 5 guy. We definitely weren't giving him that kind of love, probably just because he's kind of a smaller dude. But the dude jumps up the gym. He's faster than you, and he's got
his jump ball skills are underrated. I'll give him that. And he caught 30 less balls than Devonte last year.
Yep.
28 less balls and only had 3 less touchdowns.
Oh, that's huge.
Like that's insane.
Yep.
And he's just a playmaker. Anywhere you put him on the field, you're going to have to account for him. Then you've got to account for Travis Kelsey, nonetheless Pat Mahomes himself, right. Maybe even Clyde in the backfield. Like it's hard to stop that offense, and Tyreek reaps the most benefits out of it. I mean, him and Travis, they honestly nearly put up the same stats, which is insane, even though Travis catches 20 more balls than he does. It's really wild is how many touchdowns Tyreek has scored his first 4 or 5 seasons in the NFL. It's pretty insane. So
your safety gets caught looking down at Travis Kelsey, and then Tyreek's 3 steps behind you.
Yeah, so, and he's gonzo. Peace out. See you.
That's the Chiefs right there. How do you stop them? Good question.
Yep.
Number 3, Stephon Dix. Dude's an absolute stud. Got better. Actually leaving the Vikings, which I don't think a lot of people thought he was going to do.
Better QB.
Absolutely. Josh Allen is a major upgrade over Kirk Cousins.
Receptions leader.
66 targets last year.
Stupid.
I could see him getting another 150 plus targets this year. Would definitely like to see his touchdown numbers go up. I think that will definitely happen. I think Josh Allen is just getting better. Another MVP guy. I really like Stephon Dix.
Yeah. To your point with Josh Allen, though, I think he steals some of the touchdowns from him. with
That's
with
interesting.
with his
Yeah.
with his legs. Like he's got 166 targets, led the league.
Right.
127 catches, led the league.
Yep.
1,500 yards, I bet led the league. I mean, you're right. If he could get double-digit touchdowns, he'll be right up there, number one.
Yeah.
He could easily be number
all
one.
three of these guys could easily be the number one guy.
Stud.
Yeah.
Absolute stud.
Number 4, I have DeAndre Hopkins. Like I said, the receivers, the top 4 guys are pretty cut and dry for me. The thing with DeAndre, I just don't think his quarterback is as good as the other 3 guys, quite frankly. I think that Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes are much better throwers of the football. And I think that just plays to those receivers' benefits. DeAndre is going to get the targets. He's definitely the number 1 guy on that team. He's going to get the red zone looks. He's going to get the Hail Mary balls. He's arguably the best receiver in the league. I just think that the quarterback situation there is what downgrades.
Doesn't miss games.
Right.
He's going to be out there every down. He's the go-to guy for him. He's going to get his targets. I think adding AJ Green's going to take a little pressure off of him.
Yep.
I think they expect Christian Kirk, to step up and have a bigger role in the offense, which will only benefit Hopkins in the long run. I think just to get eyes off of him. So you can't argue with that. Hopkins is a stud. Always is a stud.
It kind of feels like the early Matt Ryan with the Falcons offense a little bit for me with the Cardinals here. I kind of feel like
Cliff.
Building.
That's what he wants.
Exactly. They're bringing in running that spread. They got a mobile quarterback who can get out and run. But Kyler can sling the ball too. I'm not trying to take anything away from Kyler here. He can sling it.
He can. He's
and
dirty with it.
A lot of weapons there. I think DeAndre Hopkins is the 4 guy here.
Yeah. I agree with that.
You kind of hit at it a little bit earlier. I have DK Metcalf. I think DK Metcalf is an absolute stud. I think he's just going to keep getting better. I think his targets are going to go up. I think Tyler Locket is going down. Tyler Lockett was the 8th best receiver last year in fantasy. People like to discredit that. But DK Metcalf, I think, is just continuing to get better. The dude's a physical freak. The dude eats, sleeps, breathes football. And I think he has an all-pro quarterback, like you said, throwing the ball.
Yep.
So I have DK at 5.
Yep. No, I can't argue with that. And that's an easy transition because that's actually where I would have DK at. Or I have DK at 6. Would barely miss my top 5. The only person that I would switch out is Justin Jefferson. He would be in my top 5. I think he's a complete stud. He's a rookie last year, broke fucking Randy Moss's receiving yards record, had 7 touchdowns, caught 88 balls, 125 targets. Adam Thielen's still over there. I think Jefferson's going to be a stud. He'd be in my top 5. He'd probably be right at 5 for me, but our 6. Right. So yeah, our top 4 are pretty much the same, maybe interchanged a little bit, but pretty close. So DK, my 6. 7, I'm gonna go Calvin Ridley. Stud. He had 143 targets, 1,300 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns, 90 catches. With Julio gone, I know that they like Russell Cage. They're gonna throw the ball all day. That is what they do with Matt Ryan. Yes, Matt Ryan's getting older, could regress, but that's all they're going to do is throw the ball, and Calvin's going to be their number 1 guy. They added Kyle Pitts. People are at least going to account for him in the receiving game, which again, I think benefits Calvin Ridley. He could easily get 140 targets again, catch 100 balls, and have double-digit touchdowns. So 7, I think, is a perfect spot for Calvin Ridley. Top 10 player for sure.
Same spot I have, Matt.
For sure. 8, I have Terry McLaurin. Biggest question mark here is quarterback, but I don't think it matters. I love Ron Rivera as a coach. You still got Antonio Gibson in the backfield, who's going to have to be accounted for. They added Curtis Samuel, who's a speedster, and I think Terry McLaurin is an absolute stud. Had 134 targets last year, had 1,100 receiving yards, and caught 87 balls. Where he lacked was the touchdowns. They were interchanging with Alex Smith got hurt. Heineke, at some point was in there. They bring back Fitzpatrick. He's going to be a game manager for the most part, I think he stays pretty healthy. I know he tends to throw picks here and now and again, not make the best decisions, but I think they're going to feed Terry McLaurin, and he could easily top 1,300 receiving yards and touch double-digit touchdowns if they want to feed him that much. I think I think he could double his touchdowns will alone, really put him up there in the top 10 for me.
That's the thing with Terry, and he's a speed guy. That's what he is. He's faster than you. He wants to streak. He wants to go. He's long. He's big, and he's tall, lanky. He wants to go. I don't have him in the top 10 just for the quarterback play in there. But if he doubles his touchdowns, the dude he's going to get all the targets there. I know they got Curtis Samuel and Logan Thomas, but I think Terry McLaurin's the clear cut number one guy there. And I think Fitzpatrick knows that. Fitzpatrick's going to get him the ball, and he's going to do that efficiently because that's just what he does.
Definitely.
It'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. If he doubles his touchdowns, he's definitely a top 10 guy.
For sure. You say the street guy, speed guy. He honestly reminds me a lot of early OBJ, Odell Beckham. Being on that Giants team, being the real true target over there and still eating. Just those deep balls, always has those secure hands, will catch anything that hits him here in his mitts. It's beautiful. And I think he's underrated. It's crazy it is to say with the stats that he put up. It wouldn't not surprise me if he touched top 5 at the end of the year if they really got 150 targets and he could catch 100 balls. I think he has a lot of upside. I think his floor is really high. His upside ceiling is through the roof. It could be whatever they want it to be. So that's number 8 for me. Moving on to number 9, I'm going to go AJ Brown. I had Ryan Tannehill over there in my top 8 or 9, whatever it was, in my top 10 QBs. And I think AJ Brown is going to be a beast. I personally liked AJ Brown more than DK coming out of college. He was really productive over there at Ole Miss. The kid's a stud. Will catch anything you put his way. Well, he looks like a tight end, but runs like a fast receiver and has the feet, the hands, whatever you want him to do, he's going to do it. He literally has built himself to look like Julio, and now he's playing with Julio. I know it was like a big role model of his growing up. That's who he wanted to build his game after, and so everybody saw the recruiting videos trying to get him, and it worked, obviously, but I think he is the next Julio, and he's a stud. I mean, so last year, 106 targets, which that's low. In my opinion, that's low. He only caught 70 balls for 106 targets and barely broke 1,000 yards, but had the 11 touchdowns. And now with gotta count for Julio, you still got big 2K Derrick Henry in the backfield. You got fucking AJ Brown on the other side. They're setting up the play action. They're letting it rip. I think AJ Brown's going to be the receiver that comes out on top of that offense and really eats. I could easily see another double-digit touchdown year, but 1,200 yards and 125 targets, creeping up on 100 receptions. So
the 125 target mark is exactly right. I think with Julio there, he's definitely not going to get the 150 side, but I think he's definitely the number one receiver in that offense. I think him and Ryan Tannehill have chemistry. I think Julio only benefits him. It takes pressure off.
Agreed.
I think everybody loves Corey Davis. I'm not sold necessarily on Corey Davis. I think Julio is definitely an upgrade for Corey Davis.
Go ahead. He went to the Jets.
Yeah, the Jets.
Gotcha.
He's gonna die. That's
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and he's like the 97th NFL top 100 players.
Yeah, I'm not that big on Corey, but
that was interesting. So that's the reason why I said that.
I get what you're saying.
I think Julio is big for AJ Brown. I have AJ Brown at 8, so I think that's
okay. So yeah, I'm surprised you had him in your top 10 actually.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
I like AJ
Brown. Okay. So I had him at 9 there. Number 10, who a guy 2 years ago was an absolute stud. I think regressed a little bit last year, but he still caught 92 balls, didn't break 1,000 yards, and only had 3 touchdowns. Mr. Cooper Kupp over there on the Rams offense. I was big on Stafford in my top 10. I think they're going to be slinging the ball. Another year, Robert Woods, he's still good. Don't get me wrong, Robert over there, he's going to get his looks, but Cooper Kupp, I think, is the clear-cut number one target over there. And he's going to benefit the most from Matt Stafford coming over. He's white, and so people underestimate him. And he's a wizard with his toes and his feet and his vision. And if he can catching 92 balls out of 124 targets, like DK had 129 targets and only caught 83 balls. Like that catch percentage there is pretty impressive. So I think Cooper Kupp's a stud. If he can bump up those targets, closer to 140, he's easily going to pass 1,000 yards and touch the double-digit touchdowns. And he breaks the top 10 for me, which as a guy, I didn't think he'd be in your top 10. Probably isn't.
No, he's not. So
yeah.
And it's really interesting with him and Robert Woods. So you just kind of see him taking Robert Woods' role basically, and just becoming the real number one guy there. Remaining healthy would be a big thing for him. And I could definitely see that happening with Matt Stafford and just it's just a new kind of it's just a different offense now.
For sure.
So it may play to Cooper Kupp's strengths more. The dude catches everything. He is the all-time NCAA reception leader in college. He's a stud.
Yep.
I like Cooper Kupp. He's not in my top 10. It's interesting. My 9 and 10s are different than yours, and they're kind of fringe guys as well, I would say. My 9 is Allen Robinson.
He'd be right there on mine. Yep.
Yeah, we were talking about it yesterday, and you made the comment the dude's been a stud. He's kind of up and down a roller coaster. He's not the most consistent dude, and he does get hurt, but he's never had a quarterback. I think Justin Fields looks great. I don't see Andy Dalton lasting long there at all.
4 weeks, 3-4 weeks.
Is coaching for his job, honestly. I think when he was with the Chiefs, they were awesome. I think he can really bring some of that to Chicago. I think he's got a mobile quarterback with Justin Fields, and I think he can sling it. I think he's a perfect fit for the Bears. He has great upside, honestly.
Yeah.
Him and Trey Lance's look great too. Those guys have really surprised me. They're really good fits. I think Allen Robinson could definitely be a top 10 guy.
For sure. I love that. He's a stud, absolute stud. To the Matt Nagy point, I don't think he's on the hot seat quite yet, just because they drafted Justin Fields. Yeah, I think they give him a year, and I think they give him next year. He'll be on the hot seat and see what Justin Fields does with the offense. I think that'll be really the make or break for him. But to your point with Allen Robinson, I mean, he was in Jacksonville forever, and he was catching 100 balls easy, with Blake Bortles. Like, he catches everything that comes his way. He's an absolute stud. Easily could have broke my top 10, but I did pop Cooper Kupp up there. So it was honestly between Kupp and A-Rob for me at 10.
150 targets, 102 catches, 1,250 yards, only 6 touchdowns. I think Justin Fields is definitely going to make those touchdowns go through the roof.
Gross.
I think Allen Robinson is prime for a big year.
Yeah.
And then my 10 guy is different as well. I put CeeDee Lamb at 10. I think that he's definitely going to turn into the number one there in Dallas. I don't see Amari Cooper staying healthy. That's just not what Amari Cooper does. He's a little bit of a head case. The dude's a stud, but I think CeeDee Lamb is. I went to a game at Oklahoma with him and Jalen Hurts, and he was the best player on the field by far. And he's just an amazing route runner. The dude is fast. He's just really crisp. And I think him and Dak Prescott, that offense, they're going to score a bunch of points. I think CeeDee Lamb could be a top 10 receiver this year.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I had Dak in my top 5, so it would definitely make sense for CD or at least Cooper to be close to my top 10.
He's
when it
doing some
comes to the
stuff
stats
right now. He's on the exempt list, so I'm not sure if he's tested positive or whatnot.
I think that's going through the Cowboys a little bit, because I didn't even know their D coordinator was out.
Right. So I don't know if he'll be there to start the season, so that may impact him a little bit. But I think he's primed for a big year. I think the Cowboys are better than people give them credit.
For sure. That's a good list. I like how we had a couple different guys there, a couple different fringe guys. Interchangeable, but I think we have a good top 10 there. All right, last position rankings here, the tight ends. Like I said, Eggs had the top 5 QBs, top 5 receivers. I've got the top 5 running backs and the top 5 tight ends. So I'll start it off here. Number 1, don't know if it's really much of an argument, but Travis Kelsey. 136 targets, 97 balls. Oh, this is actually 2020 or 2019. He had 100. Yes, Travis Kelsey, 145 targets last year, caught 105 balls. 1,400 receiving yards. I believe broke the tight end record for receiving yards last year. Broke his own record. Or Kelsey broke the record. Kittle broke the record, and he took the record back last year. 11 touchdowns, double digit. In my mind, he easily catches another 100. He's a staple of that offense. Pat loves him. He's a security blanket for him. If they need a down and distance, he's their go-to guy every day of the week. Moving to number 2, this was a little difficult for me. This had actually a little bit of thinking, but he put up crazy numbers last year, so I guess it's really not that big of a surprise. But Darren Waller burst onto the scene as a tight end with 146 targets, 107 catches, 1,200 yards receiving, and 9 touchdowns. Played every game. He's like a Clydesdale out there. I mean, he's huge and looks like a receiver. He's a beast. Derek Carr, I think, that's his number one guy, his go-to. John Gruden loves feeding the tight ends, and if he's got a good one like that, he's going to give it to him all day. Would Darren Waller be that high on your list, number 2?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You like him there? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's spot.
Yeah. Number 3, I've got George Kittle. Healthy George Kittle. Yeah, they could all be interchanged. Really, the top 3 here. They are in a tier by themselves. If he plays all 16 games, absolute stud. 2019, he went 107 targets, 85 balls, caught 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. I would like to see the touchdowns up a little more. I think that's something the 49ers would like to see as well. Maybe. I don't know. Kyle Shanahan really likes to spread the ball out and do whatever it takes to get in. But George Kittle's a staple of the offense. Jimmy's going to love him. Trey Lance is going to love him if he's playing. They're going to look his way. He's an absolute stud in the run game. He's going to catch the balls. He's going to be Mr. Consistent. So those top 3 guys, solid. I don't think it's much of an argument for anybody to have any 3 of them.
Yeah, no, I think Travis is definitely probably the top just for Pat.
Just consistency wise, I just doing it for so long. I think we have to put Travis 1, and you said, with Pat.
I have George 2 and Waller 3.
Yeah,
just like there you can flip that.
They're all there. They're all right there. Number 4, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson security blanket. Loves those seam routes, red zone. They're so focused on the goddamn run game that he's going to get open and he's going to get his balls. He's going to catch them. Had 98 targets, didn't break 1,000 yards, had 850, but had double-digit touchdowns, 10 touchdowns. So he's a red zone beast for the Ravens over there. Just because everybody's so focused on the run game, they think they're gonna stuff it in and go over the top, and it's a play action, and no shit, there's Mark Andrews in the corner catching the touchdown. 64 balls caught last year. I think he's an easy top 5 guy for me. But there is a clear difference between Mark Andrews and the other 3 to me. The touchdowns could easily regress. I don't know if he'll hit double digits again, but he's definitely going to be a big part of that offense.
Yep. Yeah, no, and I think Mark Andrews has definitely proven, multiple consistent, top 5 tight end years as a tight end. He's definitely not in that top tier, but he's definitely the leader of tier 2, I would say.
Right, for sure. Number 5, this is my surprise pick. A guy that I think is going to finally have a big breakout year. Irv Smith Jr. of the Vikings. Last year, he only had 47 targets, only had 300 yards, and only caught 2 touchdowns. No more Kyle Rudolph. Kirk Cousins. The big question for me is if Mike Zimmer wants to get him involved. Yeah. That's the big question mark for me. Irv Smith, it's a make or break year for him. I don't know if it's a contract year, but it should be because he really needs to put it on. And I think he shows up and he could go for 800 yards, kind of like a Mark Andrews role, in my opinion. I think he could catch 60 balls and go for 700-800 yards and definitely get closer to double digits. Probably not break it, but 6, 7, 8 touchdowns. could easily put him in that top 5 range and be overlooked. When you're looking at all the tight ends, Irv Smith could definitely be overlooked, and I think he could break that top 5.
Yeah, he's not in my top 10, so just the overlooked factor of that. But I could definitely see him doing that. He's got all the talent in the world.
Exactly.
Alabama guy. I like it. It's interesting. It's definitely different. There's a lot of mouths to feed there in Minnesota, but
definitely
he's big. He's strong. He's fast. I could definitely see him getting some red zone looks, and if he can get his touchdown numbers up, he may not have the reception numbers, but the touchdowns are definitely going to boost him and get him up there. I like that.
Definitely. On to you at 6. What's your list look like?
I have Kyle Pitts at 5.
Okay.
So we can't leave him off the list. I think the thing with Kyle Pitts, when you draft somebody, especially a tight end in that spot, you're definitely going to feed him the ball. I think he's going to basically step in and get all of Julio's targets. I know Julio didn't play a lot last year, but I think that they're going to feed him the ball. They're going to get him involved. They want to use him. And the Falcons and Matt Ryan, I would not be surprised if Matt Ryan leads the league in passing attempts, and they just slang it. So Kyle Pitts at 5.
Yeah,
I think he has a lot of pressure, but I think they're just going to force feed him.
I think his ability alone, he definitely would have been in my top 10, probably 6, 7.
I think if he stays,
they're going to feed him.
He's almost guaranteed 100 targets. I just think that he's going to be that just interval.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, no,
as a rookie,
I really think so. I think he'll play every down, and I like Kyle Pitts.
Okay, I like that.
I would not be surprised if he's the best player from the draft. He's an absolute stud. Number 6, just to start my list off, I have Mike Gesicki. I think that the Dolphins are on the up and up. I think Tua, he's just only going to get better. I think that they love their coach. Their defense is getting strong. I really think that he's starting to take his steps forward. I think last year was definitely a better year for him. Whereas he's a little farther down. He's 12 here on ESPN. He had 85 targets last year, so he's definitely getting the looks. And I'm just not sure who else is going to catch the ball down there. So Tua needs a security blanket, and I think that Mike Gesicki, he's deceptively fast and he's big. Coming out of Penn State, I really liked him. So I think he'll really have a breakout year necessarily, kind of propel him as a top 10 guy.
To your point, I think they have Devontae Parker and they drafted Waddle.
Yeah, Jalen Waddle. Yep.
I think it's a big year for Tua alone, and for young guys, young QBs, I tend to lean towards they like their tight ends. It's kind of like a security blanket for them. It's just an easier throw most of the time. But Gesicki has good hands and is more of a receiver, at the end of the day. So I like that pick. He's going to be good. 700 yards, that's pretty good, and 6 touchdowns. He could definitely increase on all those.
I definitely think their passing offense especially is going to be better. And now that you throw Devontae Parker and Jalen Waddle out there, Jalen Waddle and Tua have chemistry. They play together in college.
Yeah.
I think that offense is on the up and up. I think that the Dolphins are finally climbing out of the cellar, and I think Mike Gesicki kind of propels himself into a top 10 tight end.
Jalen Waddle did call. Didn't he say Mac Jones was better than Tua?
Really?
When he was at Alabama, I think I'm pretty sure he did.
After he left or something.
And then he got drafted to go back with Tua.
That's hilarious.
Funny. Yeah.
Jalen Waddle is so freaking fast, man.
Yes. Speed demon.
I think Miami will be an interesting team this year. I think they'll probably sneak into the playoffs. They might be a 6 or 7 seed in the AFC.
Good wild card, yeah. Since there are 7 teams that go now, yeah, very well could.
I think they're on the right track. My number 7 guy is Jonnu Smith. I think he had a monster year last year for the Titans. What did he have? 8 touchdowns. Only 65 targets, actually. So the touchdowns really is kind of what propelled him to fantasy galore there. But I think he's a big athletic freak. I think going to New England, they love the tight ends. I know that having Hunter Henry on the other side of him is definitely going to impact that. But they don't have anybody on the outside to catch the ball. They love those 2 tight end sets there in New England. That's what Bill Belichick did for years with Tom Brady. I think Mac Jones kind of sliding into that Tom Brady role. he's not Tom Brady by any means, but I think that the tight ends are going to get a lot of targets. And they're going to get a lot of looks there.
Yeah, Bill loves his tight ends. He's gonna give them their looks, and that's a reason he went out and signed 2 free agent tight ends to deals. Just so he could play that. And to my point with the rookies and young quarterbacks, if Mac Jones gets the go ahead, which it looks like he is right now, I think to your point he could. Only thing I will say is I think Hunter Henry's a little bit more of a receiver when it comes to that. I think Jonnu's going to be more on the line blocking a little more, but he could definitely get his targets.
The money they paid Jonnu, they paid him more.
Was it paid more than Hunter?
More.
Okay.
Yeah, a significantly amount more.
Okay.
A 4-year, $50 million contract.
I know that I know a lot of people were surprised that the Titans didn't re-sign him, to be honest, but
I think he's primed for a big year there in New England, and especially with tight ends, touchdowns are huge. He's going to be a big red zone guy for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 8, I have T.J. Hawkinson. A lot of people have him as a top 5 tight end. He's another guy like Kyle Pitts. When you draft a guy at 8 at tight end, you're going to use it, right? I think I could definitely see him leading the team in targets, honestly, in Detroit. I don't.
What else do they have?
Marvin Jones, is he still there?
No, he went to Jacksonville.
Well, yeah. So
Kenny
Galladay. Point with T.J. Hawkinson, 101 targets last year as a rookie,
yeah.
67 receptions, 700 yards, 6 tutties. I definitely think he's primed for another 100 yards. I don't see Jared Goff slinging the ball downfield. I think he's dumping the ball on the drag route, doing that kind of stuff. Blocking release stuff with T.J. Hawkinson. I think that T.J. Hawkinson's definitely the red zone guy there in Detroit. The Lions are going to be horrible. But I think from a tight end perspective, I think T.J. Hawkinson is definitely going to squeeze into the top 10 just off targets.
Definitely. Yeah, he could definitely be their go-to guy there. I honestly don't even know who else they have when it comes down to receivers. So, who did they – Tyrell Williams. That's who they got from the Raiders. Yeah, he hasn't had a good year since like 2019, but TJ's going to get his looks. Thing that worries me a little bit, he had 101 targets, only caught 67 of them.
Yeah.
And like Robert Tonyan has 60 targets and is catching 52 of them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
yeah,
that's
interesting.
That's a big question mark and 6 touchdowns. So we'll see. Drafting him as early as they did, they're definitely going to want to feed him and test what he has, coming into his 3rd year. So good pick. I could definitely see him. I agree, though. A lot of people have him super high. I don't know if I'd have him top 5, or clearly didn't have him top 5. No. But
I'm
a little
not
more
drafting him early than if he falls to you, that's a good pick. But
right, he's a good guy that you can keep in your tight end, and you'll get good weeks, you'll get bad weeks if you're looking for a tight end. But other than that, I'm not going to reach for him.
The thing with Detroit too, if Goff goes down, I'm not sure who's playing quarterback there. No weapons on the outside he could really plummet and not even be a top 10 back or fantasy
right
if they have some significant injuries there. Number 9, I have Noah Fant.
Stud,
freaking fast, man. I think he's kind of been the victim of the quarterback carousel there in Denver. I think them naming Teddy as the starter is good for the team moving into the season. I love Drew Lock. Dude's got a rocket arm, just not the best brain. I think Teddy's more of a game manager. That's what they need. They're not the greatest team. They have a decent defense, so they can stay in some games that way. I think Noah Fant, 93 targets last year, 62 receptions.
Yep.
Really limited on the touchdown factor. They got a lot of big guys on the outside, a lot of big fast guys. So I don't see his touchdowns really going through the roof necessarily. But if he can pick up, 2 more and get in that 5 touchdown range, he's going to get close to 75, 80 targets again, I would assume. And I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to be better than Drew Lock was last year.
For sure. I really like Noah Fant as a receiving tight end. I don't know if you saw this, but he did get hurt in practice this week.
I see that.
He's been wearing like a leg sleeve or something, so that worries me a little bit, especially at the start of the year, and with an offense that's questionable in itself. I mean, they just decided who their QB was, but he definitely, if I would have made a top 10, 6 through 10, he would have been at 6. He was between. It was honestly him him and Irv Smith at 5 for me.
Wow.
Because I do think Fant's a stud, and I really like him. But the leg injury thing kind of pushed me away from it. So I like that though.
That's an interesting point. And I just don't my kind of where he slides down a little bit for me is that there's a lot of guys there in Denver to catch the ball
For sure.
Whereas like Hawkinson and maybe a Jonnu Smith and Gesicki, I think Gesicki's got some.
They drafted Jerry Jeudy real early. They love
Right,
Courtland Sutton. They just got Javonte Williams and then Melvin Gordon. KJ Hamler, I think they like as like a deep ball guy, which he didn't get a lot of work last year, but
Albert O is the other tight end.
Yeah.
They got some good young players there in Denver.
If Fant's out, look out for Albert O.
Yeah, that's a decent point there as well.
For sure.
My 10, I couldn't decide on my 10. I flip-flop back and forth. I have Logan Thomas and Dallas Goedert. I think Dallas Goedert, the Eagles, I think are going to be the worst team in the fucking league. But I think that they love to throw the ball at tight end. I think Zach Ertz made a living there doing that. He's still on the roster, so that's kind of interesting. That may impact Dallas Goedert's, I guess, looks necessarily. But when Dallas Goedert's on the field, he gets his targets. He's 65 targets as the backup tight end. 46 catches last year, 500 yards. I think he's the lead tight end now for sure. I think Jalen Hurts is a mobile guy. When he's rolling out, doing that stuff, he's going to be dumping that ball down a little bit more, doing that kind of stuff. And I think Dallas Goedert is going to reap all those benefits. Logan Thomas, I remember him as a quarterback at Virginia Tech. So the fact that he is a relevant fantasy tight end is very interesting to me. The dude's massive. He obviously wants to be in the league so bad that he'll switch positions and just get huge. And the dude was a monster last year down the stretch.
Yeah.
You can't argue that. He 110 targets last year, 72 receptions, 670 yards.
He had 110 last year?
110 targets.
Man. Damn. I didn't realize that.
I couldn't leave him off the list. I'm not as high on him in the Redskins. I think the Redskins are more of an 8-8 team. But I think Logan Thomas is going to get his looks in that offense.
Definitely.
I think he's proven to them. To your Ron Rivera point, I really think it'll be interesting to see how he kind of evolves and takes off from here. But he's 30 years old, so you got to kind of take that into account. He's not a spring chicken anymore, but he's a former quarterback. He knows where he needs to be.
Yep.
He's aware of
can read the defense. Yep.
Exactly. So I think that plays to his strengths, and I definitely could see him being a top 10 guy.
Yeah, that's interesting. Back to your Dallas Goedert though. I like that pick. I also think he's taken over Zach Ertz. I'm a little surprised you think the Eagles are going to be the worst team in the league. Are you just not big on their? I mean, they draft Devonte Smith. You don't like Miles Sanders, I guess, at all.
Worst? Can you tell me 3 people on their defense besides Fletcher Cox? That's the only one person.
Brandon Graham.
And Darius Slay.
They have Darius Slay.
Who else?
Fletcher Cox.
They got Devonte Smith to catch the ball.
Oh my God. Who are their safeties? Janoris Jenkins is there?
No, you're thinking of Malcolm Jenkins.
Malcolm Jenkins, not Janoris.
He's like
Malcolm.
38.
Right.
So I don't think he's roaming around back there anymore. I think the Eagles are.
But Sanders is going to be good, right? You don't like Sanders?
There are 20 running backs I would rather take than Miles Sanders. The Eagles are horrible. They're going to be the worst team in the league.
20?
20 running backs.
It's those drops, huh?
I'll make a list. You can put it next to my name. Seriously. He doesn't catch the ball. The Eagles are bad. Their offensive line is trash. Jalen Hurts is not good.
All right.
I'm not feeling the Eagles. I think they're silly for getting rid of Carson Wentz. I think he's better than Jalen Hurts is.
Yeah. I like guys that have chips on their shoulder though, that have something to prove. And Jalen Hurts is definitely one of those guys. He's been written off forever and has never really gotten. He's gotten a shot in college. Don't get me wrong. He had his chances. I don't know. I'm kind of excited to see what they do, but they're not the most well run right now. I can agree with that. They're not going to be fighting for the playoffs, in my opinion. So
No, they're going to be fighting the Giants for the cellar of the NFC. While Miles Sanders is a borderline top 30 running back.
Oh man, that's good stuff. It's good stuff. 20 more running backs, he says.
2-0.
20 more.
We'll
have to make a list. Honestly. We'll have to make a list. Well, with that, I think that was some good rankings. Like we said, drafts are right around the corner. I know we're excited for ours. We'll get the keg going, get the grill going, get everybody nice and drunk, and see how bad everybody else drafts, and we can make fun of them and go from there. But we have a few surprises this year. I'm gonna wait till draft day to tell the rest of the league what those surprises are. But I'm very excited. It's gonna be. We have the expansion, adding fill me holes and the fudge packers, making it 14 teams. It's going to be a lot deeper than what I think people realize it's going to be. Adding 36 players to rosters is huge, not only for the draft, but for free agency, not counting IR spots, when people go down. It's going to be really interesting how thin some of these positions get very early in the draft. So I'm super excited. It's going to be, it really comes down to your football knowledge, who can hit the free agency or the waiver wire the best. It's going to be fun. The first $1,000 winners is going to be this year. The loser is going to pay, the last place loser in regular season is going to pay double the amount. It's going to pay $200. And like I said, a few more surprises to go with it. So, you got anything else to say, Eggs? Anything to know?
No, I'm excited. The roster spot thing is huge.
Yeah,
I'm excited to draft. I'm excited for the keg. I'm excited for the surprises.
Definitely. It's gonna be fun. Well, thank you guys for another episode. This is the Bang Bus Football Podcast, where every inch matters. We're getting better.